The company is hiring. You'll have your very own ship, your very own crew. Your job? Collect worthless garbage to return to the company desk. It's
Over the past few weeks, there's been one particular horror game that has been taking the internet by storm. You've probably played it yourself, or if not, have seen viral clips going around, like where somebody screams their heart out from a giant spider, or where Germa was eaten by a goddamn Pac-Man. The game I'm talking about is Lethal Company. In short, this game has been one of the most entertaining games that I've played this year. In fact, it's so fun that I've been putting off making this video all week so I can play more of this. Sorry about that, I guess. But what about this game makes it so addictive and so fun to play? Well, Lethal Company is a survival horror game that can be played with up to 4 people at a time. It was released to the public on October 23rd of this year and was created by the one-man army known as Zeekers. Now, what's interesting about Zeekers is his history in creating games. In the past, he's created games like It Steals and The Upturn that are available to play on itch.io, but before Lethal Company and before those games, he was most well known for creating psychological horror games on Roblox of all places. God, if I had a nickel for every time a Roblox developer released an amazing indie game this year, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's pretty weird that it happened twice. Anyways, upon the release of Lethal Company, the game was put in an early access state, and to this day when I'm recording this, it is still in early access, but there is a lot to take on when playing. Lethal Company is all about you and your friends being hired to this one mysterious company around the late 1960s. The company you work for is completely unknown. You have no idea who your boss is, and you don't exactly know why you're doing the stuff that you do. It's all one giant mystery. All you do know is that you have your friends, and you have an autopiloted ship. Using the ship, you're able to go to a bunch of different moons, and also this ginormous walled area called the Company Building, where your primary and really only objective is to gather and sell scrap from abandoned research stations. Pretty simple, right? Right? Wrong. Every 3 days, you get a quota for how much money you need to make by selling the scrap. You can sell the scrap on any day by heading over to the company building. However, you will always need to keep track of how much the scrap will sell. It can sell anywhere from 30 to 100%, with some certain logs that I'll talk about a little bit later, even stating that there is a rare 120% return rate, so it's always best to keep track of how much they're being sold for. After you complete each quota by selling the scrap, the minimum intake will increase depending on how many people are in your crew. And if you don't make the quota, well, let's just say you make a free trip out into space for the rest of your short life. Getting the scrap needed to fulfill the quota is, not really all that easy, I gotta be honest. During your adventure, you're able to go to 8 different moons to try and collect some money. These are Experimentation, Assurance, Vow, Offense, March, Ren, Dine, and Titan. Most of these moons you're able to freely fly to without needing a payment, except for the last 3, which can cost anywhere between 550 and 700 coins. On top of that, each moon has its own relative difficulty and enemies that will take you on and rip through you like they're the Ripper from Fallout. So it's always best to start off with the easier moons. Once landing down, you have all day to scavenge around. However, at midnight and each night, the autopilot will take off whether you are or are not on the ship, so be careful with that. The scrap that you can find in these research stations can also vary depending on what you take. Some of these can fit in one hand and can fill up one of your 4 inventory slots, but others you need to have a 2-handed hold, and you cannot access your inventory if you have that item. On top of that, each item also has its own weight, so if you carry more stuff that weighs more, you're going to slow down a lot more, and your regeneration rate is going to be a lot slower. Also, as you're in the research station trying to look for the perfect scrap to collect, there will be a whole bunch of monsters and beasts just roaming around ready to eat you alive. Some of these beasts can be fairly docile, like the hoarding bug that will only attack you if you take their items, but others can be a literal mannequin that sprints towards you the second you look away from it. In fact, let's just go down a list of a few enemies that you can encounter. There's the snare flea that'll try to hang up on the ceiling and try to pounce on you when you least suspect it. If they do land on you, you're basically a dead man walking unless a friend is able to whack them off with a shovel or a stop sign. You have the eyeless dog that likes to hang around the outside of the research station at a set time. Just like in their name, they don't have eyes, you know? eyeless dog, so it's best to sneak around and to not use your microphone. If you alert them, and yes, I mean them, there can be multiple at once, you might as well start up a new game, as they can also enter your ship if you don't close the doors behind you, so hiding is not a good factor. Then there's the Forest Keeper, the other enemy that lurks around outside at a given time. Unlike the eyeless dogs, these keepers do have eyes and will use them to track you down and eat you. God, I can't make a pyrocynical joke here, it's just too easy. And how could I forget this guy, who also has eyes but hates it when you look into them? Just don't look into them. That's all I ask. These are 4 enemies that could ruin your entire run in seconds if you are not careful enough. And what's crazy is that this is only a quarter of the enemies that you can encounter in Lethal Company. In total, there's about 16 types of enemies that can and will make you shit your pants in the dark and decrepit research station. But that's not even all the danger that you can encounter. Going back to the planets during some certain days, there can be particular weather patterns that will fuck up your run instantaneously. There can be fog that heavily blinds your vision to the point where it's near impossible to see 3 feet in front of you. There's storms that can either flood the entire map and cause you to drown in your suit, or will cause lightning to shoot down and hit you if you're carrying any metallic objects. There's even an eclipse that can happen that will spawn more beasts just in case you thought this was a tad bit easy to take on. And even with the more tame weather patterns like the flooding or the fog, you can be in so much danger depending on the map. Some desert style maps can create quicksand due to the rain. Another forest style map has a ginormous hole that you'll fall into if you don't see it because of the fog. There is literally not one weather pattern that's actually beneficial to you other than sun. Now with that said, even though the odds are very much stacked against you, you do have a slight upper hand to help you gather some scrap. One item that actually comes free with the ship is the surveillance system. This will let you see where your friends are at any given time, unless they're dead, then they stop moving because, you know, them being dead and all. You're also able to see other beasts as well, so you can warn your friends, as well as you're able to open up any locked away doors using commands. On top of that though, you have the computer system. This system allows you to go to different planets, find the return rate of scrap, learn more about the lore of the game, and it can even let you buy different items. These items can help you see better in the dark, like the strong and weak flashlight, or they can help you kill the beasts, like the shovel and the zap gun. There are even teleporters that you can buy to help you traverse the map easier. It's really important that you have somebody in your crew handling the cameras and the computer system, as these are extremely vital in the high quota runs. Oh, and you can also buy a toilet and a cool looking shower for your ship, because we all know your ass is gonna stank in here. Now, even with this slight advantage, if all crew members die during a specific day before the quota, everybody will spawn right back on the ship with a day being depleted. However, every single scrap that you have collected, even the days before, they're all gonna be completely wiped away, so you're gonna have to start right from the beginning. On top of that, respawning costs you some certain coins. I think it's 20% per person that dies. You can counteract this by bringing the dead body back onto the ship, and if you do, the 20% penalty will be removed, so you can spend that coins on like pajamas or whatever you want to spend it on. Overall, the gameplay within Lethal Company is very fun and very engaging. I definitely recommend that you have at least one other person to play with in this type of game. That way, it's just twice as easy to get scrap and not die before it reaches noon on the first day. But it's also hilarious and terrifying to hear your friends scream and joke around one moment in the proximity chat and then go completely silent after they die. That alone is absolutely horrifying, and it happens so commonly where you two think you're doing so well collecting all that money, and then poof, you're on your own against the unknown. But on top of the gameplay, the visuals and sound design is so uncanny and amazing. The graphics look horrible, but in a good way. Everything is pixelated and has sort of a comic book aesthetic in terms of the colors and shading. Not only is that unique in a game, but it also makes seeing everything so much harder, especially if you're out in the fog or the darkness, or even when you're up against a leaky pipe. But then that sound design where you can faintly hear a beast running towards you, like picture this, it's your first day on the job, and like most people, you land on the experimentation moon. The outside of the moon feels somewhat soothing, as the color scheme of the desert-like area is just warming. Maybe you even ordered a flashlight, and once you receive it, you get the nice remix of that Ice Cream Truck song. Everything feels safe right now. But then the second you enter the station, all you see is the dark and gray color scheme with a grossly metallic interior. The feeling of warmth and safeness quickly vanishes as you're stuck in this metal coffin with no other sound than the fan running above you or the occasional footstep from you or something unknown. Lethal Company does an amazing job mixing unsettling sounds with unsettling graphics. There's just nothing more that I can explain with it. On top of everything though, there is a bit of a lore behind Lethal Company. Now, this is a bit of a spoiler warning for those who want to find the lore themselves, but this is very bare-boned as this game is still in early access, so there isn't any definite storyline that you can follow or there isn't an ending that you can achieve in this game yet. However, what's already in the game is mind-blowing. So with the computer that you can purchase upgrades with, you can type a special command that lets you access the logs of a previous crew who most likely met their ultimate demise, cause you know, the monsters and the weather and the company throws you out into the space type of things that happen. You won't find many logs at first on the computer, but you'll be able to discover more by searching in hard to access locations on different moons. You'll then be able to discover how the company is hiding even more stuff, as the company building that you go to sell your scrap isn't like a headquarters or anything like that. It's a cage. You see, there are legends about a gigantic monster that was able to eat up planets. One of them was the fabled golden planet that held gold. Could you not guess that? The monster seems to love metal or maybe just non-organic things, so that's why you're collecting scrap on a very set deadline. You're not selling scrap, you are feeding this monster or whatever it is and keeping it at bay. And there's a couple bits of evidence to back this up. One of them is the return rate for the scrap. Usually the return rate is fairly low in the early days of the deadline, but will go up towards the end of it. Most likely the big monster is getting hungrier over the days, so that's why it's better to feed it less often. And in the company's perspective, if you aren't able to feed the monsters after 3 days, who knows what it will eat afterwards. Henceforth, that's why you die if you don't make the quota. Also, when you turn in the scrap, there's always a chance for a bunch of tentacles to pop out and kill you without you even having a chance to defend yourself. What type of suithead secretary would tentacle you to death as if this was some hentai, unless this was a feral beast just trying to escape? And if you want even more proof, the logs state that the company's frequency whenever they send a message is not at the building but instead on the other side of the galaxy. So yeah, I'm basically a better version of MatPat with these amazing game theories. All in all though, Lethal Company is just a great game. It's terrifying to play, but it's also humorous when you're playing with friends, and there's so much potential for this game to be a mega hit when fully released. I think the only critique that I have for this game is that the interiors of the dungeons look incredibly similar from one another, except for like one map, and that's the very snowy, difficult map. But then again, Zeekerss is already updating the game pretty frequently as well, so there's much more to come with this game. With that, I seriously recommend you guys check it out on Steam if you haven't played it already. It's only $10 to buy, which is criminal if you ask me, so what are you waiting for? Go get it. But other than that, I'm gonna end this video here. Thank you all so much for watching. If you guys like this video, maybe hit that like button and subscribe, and other than that, I will see you all in a later video. Bye for now.